Hello and welcome. This is a video to learn English and to improve your listening with real history. My name is Richard. In this episode, you will learn English through history, real events, clear language, useful vocabulary, and a story that helps you listen for meaning. Today, our story is about Benjamin Franklin, one of the most famous founding fathers of the United States. This episode is B1 level. The English is natural, but not too fast. At the end, I will ask you 5 comprehension questions. So listen carefully, follow the story, and learn English with history. Our story is called Benjamin Franklin, the man who kept becoming more. Franklin was a printer, a writer, a scientist, an inventor, a public organizer, and a diplomat. That is a long list. But the most interesting part is not only what he became, it is how he kept changing, learning, and using his talents in new ways. Why does Franklin matter? He helps us understand the American Enlightenment, the American Revolution, and the idea of self-improvement. He also shows us that history is rarely simple. Franklin could be brilliant and generous, but he was also a man of his time with contradictions. His life gives us a useful question: how can one person keep growing? Important expression number 1, Founding Father. A founding father was one of the political leaders who helped create the United States. Franklin was not a president, but he helped build the new country in many ways. Repeat after me. Founding father. Good. Another useful word is founder. A founder helps start something important. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston on January 17, 1706. His father made soap and candles, and the family was large. Franklin was one of 17 children. He learned to read early, but his formal education ended when he was still a child. This did not stop him. In fact, it became part of his story. Franklin educated himself. He read whenever he could, and he practiced writing carefully. He studied good essays, copied them, remembered them, and tried to write them again in his own words. This was not magic, it was practice. He understood something simple and powerful. If you can write clearly, people are more likely to listen. Language stop. Here are 2 useful phrasal verbs. To grow up means to become older from childhood to adulthood. Franklin grew up in Boston. To teach yourself means to learn without a regular teacher. Franklin taught himself to write well. Repeat, grow up, teach yourself, excellent. At the age of 12, Franklin became an apprentice to his older brother James, who was a printer. An apprentice learns a trade by working for a more experienced person. In the printing shop, Franklin learned how newspapers, essays, and public arguments reached readers. Printing was not only a business. In the 18th century, it was a way to shape public opinion. When Franklin was still a teenager, he wrote letters for his brother's newspaper under the name Silence Dogood. The letters sounded as if they came from a clever older woman, not from a young apprentice. Readers liked them. Franklin was learning how to use humor, a strong voice, and a hidden identity to enter public conversation. But life with his brother became difficult. Franklin left Boston before his apprenticeship was finished. At 17, he went first to New York and then to Philadelphia. He arrived tired and almost without money. This moment became famous because it showed the beginning of a new life, a young worker far from home trying to make his own future. Important word, apprentice. An apprentice is a person who learns a job by working with someone skilled. Franklin was a printer's apprentice. Another word is trade. A trade is a practical job with special skills, like printing, carpentry, or metal work. Repeat, apprentice, trade. Good. Philadelphia became Franklin's home. He found work as a printer, made connections, and slowly built a reputation. His early life was not a straight road. He went to London, returned to Philadelphia, and faced business problems. But he kept working. In 1728, he set up his own printing house. A year later, he began publishing the Pennsylvania Gazette. In 1732, Franklin began publishing Poor Richard's Almanack under the name Richard Saunders. An almanac gave readers useful information, calendars, weather notes, sayings, and advice. Franklin's almanac became popular because it was practical and funny. It sounded plain, but it was carefully written. Franklin knew how to make wisdom easy to remember. Language stop, phrasal verb, to build up. It means to create something slowly over time. Franklin built up a printing business. Another phrase is to stand out. It means to be different in a noticeable way. His writing helped him stand out. Repeat, build up, stand out. Very good. Franklin did not think only about personal success. He also wanted to improve the city around him. In 1727, he formed a discussion club called the Junto. Its members talked about books, business, morals, science, and public problems. From this practical spirit came projects connected with libraries, fire protection, education, hospitals, and civic life. Franklin helped organize or support important institutions in Philadelphia. These included a library company, a volunteer fire company, the American Philosophical Society, and educational projects connected with what later became the University of Pennsylvania. He believed useful knowledge should not stay locked in one person's head. It should move through a community. Grammar stop. Listen to this sentence. Franklin was successful because he worked hard, but he was influential because he connected people. We use because to give a reason. We use but to show a contrast or add a surprising idea. Try this. He was a printer, but he also became a scientist. This structure is useful for B1 history explanations. By the 1740s, Franklin had become wealthy enough to spend more time on public service and science. He was curious about the natural world. He studied weather, ocean currents, heat, and especially electricity. For Franklin, science was not only theory, it was a way to understand the world and then solve practical problems. Franklin became internationally famous for his work on electricity. He studied positive and negative electrical charge and helped create useful words for the new science. His famous kite experiment is connected with the idea that lightning and electricity are related. The exact details of the story are debated by scholars, but his electrical work was real and important. One practical result was the lightning rod. A lightning rod helps guide lightning safely into the ground, reducing the danger of fire. This invention shows Franklin's style very well. He liked ideas, but he also liked useful results. A discovery mattered more when it could protect a home, a building, or a community. Important words: invention and experiment. An invention is a new device or method. An experiment is a test used to learn something. Franklin is remembered for inventions like the lightning rod, bifocal glasses, and the Franklin stove. Repeat: invention. Experiment. Nice work. Franklin crossed the Atlantic many times. Travel by ship was long and uncomfortable, but it connected him with Britain, Europe, and the wider world. In 1757, he went to England as a colonial agent for Pennsylvania. His job was political. He had to represent colonial interests in a powerful empire. In 1765, Britain passed the Stamp Act, a tax on printed materials in the colonies. Franklin first misjudged how strongly colonists would resist it. This was a serious political mistake. But in 1766, his testimony before Parliament helped explain colonial opposition and supported repeal of the act. His reputation in America recovered. For years, Franklin tried to keep Britain and the colonies together. He believed compromise might still be possible, but relations became worse. After public humiliation in London and growing anger over British policy, Franklin's position changed. He began to see himself more clearly as American. This change did not happen in one day. It happened through conflict. Language stop. 2 more phrasal verbs. To speak up means to express an opinion, especially when it is difficult. Franklin spoke up for colonial interests. To change your mind means to form a different opinion. Over time, Franklin changed his mind about the British Empire. Repeat, speak up, change your mind. Franklin returned to America in 1775. By then, fighting had begun at Lexington and Concord. The colonies were moving toward revolution. Franklin joined the Second Continental Congress as a representative from Pennsylvania. Some people wondered where his loyalty truly stood because he had lived in Britain for so long. But Franklin soon became central to the American cause. In 1776, Franklin was appointed to the committee that drafted the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson did most of the writing, but Franklin helped edit and support the document. He then became one of its signers. This was dangerous. Signing the Declaration meant publicly breaking with the British Crown. Later in 1776, Congress sent Franklin to France. This may have been his most important public role. The new United States needed money, weapons, ships, and diplomatic recognition. Franklin used his fame, intelligence, humor, and patience to win French support. In Paris, he became a symbol of the American cause. In 1778, France formed an alliance with the United States. This was a turning point in the American Revolution. French support brought money, troops, naval power, and international legitimacy. Franklin did not win the war alone, of course, but his diplomacy helped make victory possible. At the end of the war, Franklin helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris in 1783. This treaty recognized American independence. Think about Franklin's journey. A printer's apprentice from Boston had become one of the diplomats who helped create a new nation. His life had moved from local print shops to world politics. Important word, diplomacy. Diplomacy is the work of managing relationships between governments. A diplomat represents a country and negotiates with other countries. Franklin was one of America's most important diplomats. Repeat, diplomacy, diplomat, excellent. Franklin returned to America in 1785. He was old, often in pain, and famous on both sides of the Atlantic. In Pennsylvania, he became president of the Supreme Executive Council, a position similar to governor. Even near the end of his life, he remained involved in public affairs. In 1787, Franklin was a delegate to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. He was the oldest delegate there. His health was weak, but his presence mattered. The convention created the Constitution of the United States. Franklin understood that compromise was necessary if the new government was going to survive. Franklin's life also includes a difficult subject, slavery. Earlier in life, he had connections to slavery, and his newspaper printed advertisements connected with enslaved people. Later, his views changed. He printed anti-slavery writing, supported education for black children, and became active in abolitionist work. This does not erase the earlier facts, but it shows a real historical change. Benjamin Franklin died in Philadelphia on April 17, 1790. He was 84 years old. His funeral was attended by thousands of people, and he was mourned in France as well as America. By the end of his life, he was one of the most famous people in the Atlantic world. Franklin's legacy is large because he worked in so many fields. He changed printing, science, civic life, diplomacy, and politics. He helped people imagine the United States as a place of enterprise, public service, and practical knowledge. But his legacy also asks us to look carefully at contradiction, growth, and responsibility. What can we learn from Franklin today? We can learn that skills can travel. Writing helped him in business, science, and politics. We can learn that networks matter. Clubs, letters, newspapers, societies, and friendships helped ideas move. And we can learn that changing your mind can be part of a serious life. Vocabulary recap. Founding father. A leader who helped create the United States. Apprentice. A person learning a trade. Invention, a new device or method. Experiment, a test used to learn something. Diplomacy, the work of managing relationships between governments. Repeat the words: founder, apprentice, invention, experiment, diplomacy. Phrasal verb recap. Grow up. Franklin grew up in Boston. Teach yourself, he taught himself to write. Build up, he built up a printing business. Stand out, his writing helped him stand out. Speak up, he spoke up for colonial interests. Change your mind, his political views changed over time. Mini practice. Repeat these sentences. Franklin taught himself to write. He built up a business. He stood out as a scientist. He spoke up in politics. He changed his mind about the empire. He helped secure French support. Good. Short sentences help you remember both the English and the history. Now it is time for 5 comprehension questions. You can answer out loud or write the answers in a notebook. Do not worry if you need to listen again. Listening twice is a good way to learn. Question 1. In which city was Benjamin Franklin born? Question 2. What trade did Franklin learn as an apprentice? Question 3. Name one invention or scientific idea connected with Franklin. Question 4. Why was Franklin's work in France important during the American Revolution? Question 5. Name one reason Franklin's legacy is complex. Here are the answers. 1. Franklin was born in Boston. 2. He learned the printing trade. 3. Possible answers include the lightning rod, bifocal glasses, the Franklin stove, or his experiments with electricity. 4. Franklin helped secure French money, supplies, military support, and diplomatic recognition for the United States. 5. Possible answers include that he achieved great things but also had earlier connections to slavery, or that his views changed over time. Thank you for listening. I'm Richard. Today you learned English with real history through the life of Benjamin Franklin, a printer, writer, scientist, inventor, diplomat, and founder who kept becoming more. Listen again if you want to improve your B1 listening. The second time, try to hear the new vocabulary and phrasal verbs. See you in the next story.